Hey everybody, Chris here from Skeleton. This video is part of an ongoing series where we document progress for Skeleton X, also known as Skeleton V3. It's been a couple months since our last update video, so we've had a few people ask, what's the status of the project, where's things at? So I wanted to take this time today, just kind of walk you through and provide some progress updates on several facets of the project. First up, we'll start with documentation, which you should be seeing on the screen now. So as of last couple of weeks, we pushed out some new updates to the site. This includes kind of a revision to the the homepage here. You can see it just has kind of a new look, new feel. We've got some more information. We're kind of starting to talk about what the new version of Skeleton really is, and so we're doing a really good job, I think, of trying to summarize it here as it's an interface design system for Tailwind. Right here out of the gate, I know a lot of folks have thought about Skeleton or have, kind of referred to it in the past as a component library. So we are kind of trying to change that a little bit and try to make that more clear of the core of Skeleton is really this extension to Tailwind. And then just kind of as a bonus, we also provide components. So if you're curious to kind of learn more about that, definitely kind of click on this Get Started link, kind of read through here. It'll talk through some of that those points that I just mentioned here of how the Tailwind system works and how the themes and everything work. So how we're aiming to be framework agnostic and that sort of thing. So just with a few notable updates of mentioning ZAG and how that's going to be used for our components and things going forward. So if any of that is new or you don't know what ZAG is or anything, definitely click the links and check that stuff out. Furthermore, kind of improved several of the getting started sections, just kind of come through here and really the component section is one I want to point out, is just kind of explain how our components work within the skeleton system, right? What makes them unique? How do our style prop system, how does that operate? How does that work? How do you provide Tailwind utility classes to components, things like that? Some of this information that's still similar to what it was in prior versions of Skeleton, but the new take and the new version of that's really making V3 kind of stand apart in its own way. You'll also see several updates to dark mode section, things like that. But as you come into the design section, you're going to see a few kind of notable updates, mostly just information, not necessarily a whole new sections or anything like that. But just want to make it more clear, make the examples more obvious, a little bit more intuitive to understand what it is, the concept that we're trying to explain or show off in there. You may also notice if you scroll down a little bit, we have a much larger slew of components available, which is we're really excited about. I'm gonna circle back to that in just a moment, but I also want to talk about this new section that we've just added, which is integrations. If you come to this, it's probably going to look like this right now. It's going to be a blank section that just says coming soon. That will be updated before lunch, obviously, but we wanted to show you what this is, what our kind of concept is for where things live within Skeleton. So obviously we have the core system, that's the design system, that's all of the features you kind of see here. We've got the elements that are provided also through Tailwind and CSS. We have the functional components that are the logic and state for your interface. But we want to go kind of a step further with V3. We want to have a proper section that talks about implementing third-party libraries. So this will cover some features that we did previously cover in V2 just out of the box, but now we're kind of leaning into the tools that we feel are the better off-the-shelf solutions for some of these things. So code blocks is a great example. If you've never heard of Shiki, I believe is how it's pronounced, the Shiki syntax highlighting tool. Provides a really nice way to build code blocks. So we're going to provide kind of a detailed integration guide for that tool. Likewise for data tables, we're looking to a couple options for data tables. We use Svelte simple data tables. Excuse me, I can't speak. Data tables for V2, but as we're moving towards V3, we're going to this framework agnostic solutions, right? So we're going to look at a couple framework agnostic data table solutions. So keep an eye on that. We have some exciting stuff to kind of cover there. Popovers, we may or may not kind of cover this here. Still kind of a work in progress, but just kind of wanted to show you these are some of the topics that we're looking to kind of cover. This section may expand even. We might include things like data visualizations, which would be like a charting library, on and on and on. And these are not like, hey, you can only use this solution. This will just be our kind of recommended option for it. If you've seen kind of how we're handling iconography, this is the same kind of concept of we're not saying you have to use Lucid, which is the icon library we're using. We're just saying, hey, if you want to integrate it, here's a guide for, a first party guide for how you can do this and how you can, make use of the best use of this within your project using Skeleton. So really excited for what the integration section is going to bring. Again, we need to write some of that section. It needs to come a little bit later, but it is coming. It should be pretty cool. If you look at the top here, we have the news section. This has now been replaced with an actual feed that's being drawn in from Blue Sky. Blue Sky we announced kind of support for recently. It's very similar to Twitter. If you know Twitter, they just provide an open API that we can pull in and utilize wherever we need to on Discord, on our website, etc. So we have a handful of posts there. It's all public. You do not have to have an account to log in or view any of that. And if you don't even want to look at the Blue Sky website, you can just tap the news section on our website and now see that feed pulled in directly. Most posts are going to link off to like an update on GitHub or a release or something like that. So should get you where you need to go. All right, so sticking with the docs, we're going to go down here. We want to look at just a few components that we've kind of put out recently. Namely, one of the newest ones is the tags input. You may be familiar with this in prior versions of Skeleton. We called it input chips is what we called it. We just wanted to move away from the chips name and make it more of conceptually something you might see in other libraries. So tags is a pretty common term. Works just like you would think it. You can type whatever you want. You can add. You can remove those animates and things like that as you might expect. So we do have several examples here of using it with icons, with different colors, disabled state, that kind of thing. So just know that there's several new components if you haven't looked in a while that have been added. Pagination's another recent addition, things like that. And if you've seen our posts, our video or our prior update, written update regarding Zag integration, know that all of these components are using Zag.js under the hood. Zag just being think of it as a foundation for common UI state and patterns. So lets us really kind of bridge that gap between multi-framework support with having a consistent API and consistent feature set, which is really nice. So if we come over here and look at the React version of this feature or the Svelte version, they're going to be identical. I do want to point out we have essentially reached V2 compatibility as far as parity with the number of components that we support. If you come here and look at the old version of our documentation, the list of components here, we pretty much match all of these with the exception of one or two, listbox being one of those options. We just don't, there's just not an equivalent for this for Zag, which is what we're using for our components. And it's always been a really confusing component for folks. They never really quite understood, is this for a drop-down menu? Do I use this just embedded directly in the page? Where do I use this? And so I think we're just going to take this stance. We're just going to retire this component. We're just not going to bring it forward. Most of the time, it's just a selection list. So, there's multiple ways to handle that within, your framework of choice. So not a huge loss by any means. The other component is the tree view component, which we did have a version of, again, in V2. We do not yet have a version in V3, and the reason for that is that Zag is only, it's a tool that's still in development, just like we are, and they are kind of working towards building this new component, this new feature that we can then implement our system on top of. But they do have a preview within Arc, which is I think this is their first party component library built around Zag. They have a tree view component that exists for this. You can come in here and see like a quick demo for it, just kind of see, API reference and see kind of like what's the structure and what a feature set and what can this do. Give you kind of a good idea of what's coming down the road. It's not there yet, and we can't build this because the APIs for that are not available for us yet. But the moment they are, we do plan to include that. I just wanted to mention that specifically because it may not come until after the launch of Skeleton V3. So we hate that. We wish it was sooner, but it's not something in our direct control. And again, we will implement it as soon as we possibly can. But just wanted to point out those two components specifically, as that does kind of vary a little bit from what we've supported in the past. The other thing I wanted to point out is that you may have been aware that we were working on kind of updates towards a tool called Floating UI Svelte, which is a Svelte-specific port of Floating UI, the React library specifically. This is something that, we wanted to implement as a way to provide this kind of very low-level support for very, very powerful support for advanced users for creating popover interfaces. So you mouse over a menu and it pops up, right? Things like that. But as we've been kind of working through the Zag integration, we've realized that they have a lot of these features kind of built in, similar to the components we've already built. So if you come in here and look at, I don't know, tags input, we've now implemented a version of that, which I showed a minute ago, right? But they also have solutions for popovers where you can click here and you have your popover and it appears and looks great. So we're going to look at testing the waters with using the Zag version of these. It would be kind of an abstraction similar to what we had for V2 around floating UI, because this does use floating UI behind the hood, behind the scenes as well. But we really want to just make sure that it's capable enough for what we're intending to do. We want it to be able to be easy to use, and we want it to be powerful, and we just want to make sure that the Zag version of that kind of meets all of our standards for that. And so that'll cover a few kind of what I call overlay features. So that's popovers, modals, and toasts, which, very excited to get those kinds of features back into Skeleton V3. We just have to figure out that kind of fork in the road. Do we go with the Zag option, or do we go with our our own custom library for Svelte? And so we're still kind of deciding that we'll be testing that over the next few weeks. You'll hear some updates from us on that, probably in the next video or written post that we do, or two, maybe a couple out. The next thing I wanted to show you today is also something very exciting, something new, which is currently, if you come to our V3 documentation, so we have this link to a theme section, which is the theme generator. This is, of course, the updated theme generator provided for, the creating V3 themes. And, we've been pretty happy with it. It has this kind of interface where you kind of jump through all these preview elements. You can see the generated code. You can kind of tab through all of the settings and kind of toggle light and dark mode and things like that. This worked, but it was a very early prototype. In fact, the very first Svelte 5 application that I've personally created. And so, of course, doing something new, we made some mistakes. There were some things that weren't quite done to the standards that I wish for them to be. And so, as part of that, I've been in kind of quietly working the last couple of weeks on a replacement for this. And this is, your first look at it. We'll link a version you can actually test in the written version of this post as well, which should be linked in the YouTube video comments if you're curious to see this. Note it's not going to be live by the time the video goes, the post goes live, just because we haven't finished all the features. But before I get too far down that road, let's just take a look at what it is. So very similar to the prior version, we have kind of the split panel design. On the left is like a preview of all of your, kind of your theme and being applied to buttons and form elements and, cards and all of these different things just for preview sake. We have your color palette shown for the current theme. We've got, the different variations of preset color system, the preset utility classes that we provide, some typography stuff, just lots and lots of things for you to preview. You can still kind of jump back and forth between this and like the generated code view at any time. But for the most part, we expect most folks to come in here and just look at the nice preview, and then use the settings over here on the side to adjust things. So if I want to come in here, I can select my primary tone and start editing the color, and let's make it, I don't know, kind of a nice little like, let's go with like red. Red's always kind of cool. Let's do kind of like a little bit of a different shade. There we go. And you can see immediately, you know, the live preview of all that. If we go ahead and adjust the other tones here, you're going to see those kind of adjust in real time. And what this is doing for you is obviously generating that full palette for you. And so even though this is, you know, there we go. As I adjust that, you're seeing the palette adjust. And then any of the elements that implement that color are just updating in real time. And the cool thing is these are actual functional components. So you can come in here and click on the inputs. You can, you know, tap the buttons. You can tab through the tabs here, on and on and on. You know, this is a significant update from the prior version in that when we built the previous version of the theme generator, we had not yet built any of the components. So we couldn't preview any of the components because they didn't exist. So now that those do, we can provide these on the page and just give you a kind of a quick way to see all of that. Likewise, we can jump through a couple other settings here. We can adjust spacing, which is the kind of universal global scale factor that we've implemented as part of the theme system here. So you kind of see everything's kind of scale up and down in unison. Or if you want to see like your border edges, that's stuff like how thick is the borders, you know, around any elements that use that, you know, on and on and on. Or you can turn them off, things like that. So just a very like visual display for a lot of those settings, which is really what we wanted to kind of convey here. You can still, of course, see light and dark mode, just at a click there. And then whenever you're ready, you can come in and actually click in here and see your actual generated theme code. You can copy that, follow our instructions on the documentation site to kind of implement that. We'll provide some more guidance around that on here in the future. But for now, note that the code here is not just static. You'll actually see that as we update the color values and things like that, these are going to update in real time. So keep an eye on let's see, right here. And you're going to see the color values kind of update in real time as I adjust this. So it is, you know, very functional. It's very live and fluid and easy to use and see exactly like, okay, the settings I'm adjusting are over here affecting what part of the theme itself. And so just gives you a quick way to see where things kind of plug in. Okay, and then there's a couple things I want to point out as well that are not here. There's some color contrast issues right now. You're going to see, like, as I was adjusting the color here, sometimes the color didn't quite look right. Like the text was kind of lost. Yeah, so if this goes like a little too light, this is getting really hard to read. We had a solution for this in the prior version. We just need to kind of replace that. Likewise, we still have some of the options that existed from the prior version, like being able to see to color and have that apply throughout. Let's see. Oh, okay, that's not working. Hey, live demos, that's how it goes sometimes. The random ice feature should still work. There we go. So we can see a few options there. And then, you know, some little cool kind of power user features in here as well, such as the ability to kind of be able to see and edit all of your colors for each shade. So if I want to do primary and secondary and tertiary and all that, and come in here and manually set all of those colors, you now have the ability to do so. But features that we haven't implemented yet, you're going to notice this big import button here at the top, which I kind of skimmed past. This is a highly requested feature. People have been wanting the ability to upload and re-edit an existing theme for a long time. So we've been, as part of this kind of process of rewriting the generator, we've been kind of building it with this import feature in mind, which should now come probably over the next couple of weeks. We'll have this implemented and come as part of the launch for this new version of the generator. So very exciting stuff. You know, keep an eye out for that. Likewise, if you've seen, you know, what we have as far as like the canned options for these preset themes, we have 4 right now. We need to update those to take advantage of the new improvements to the theme generator. So the aesthetics will be very similar to what you see here. We're just going to update some of the contrast stuff, some of the typography settings, things like that. Just make sure that they're using the best of the best of the new settings, the new features of the generator. Likewise, we're going to expand that to include a number of additional new themes. I'm going to aim for around 10 for launch. We'll see if that happens. We also have the slew of legacy themes from Skeleton V2 and prior that we are going to be bringing those forwards as well. Those will be available at launch because we want to give you a smooth transition path of you were using the rocket theme on the previous version. Make sure you can continue to use that in the new version. Stuff like that. So expect these last few odds and ends to be done over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll launch this so that everybody can get their hands on it and try it out. So very exciting stuff there. The last thing I wanted to cover real quick was just let folks know that there is a new version or a new Svelte Summit coming this fall. So this is happening in about a month from now on October 19th. If you're not aware, this is provided by the Svelte Society. So Kevin and the folks that run that, Brittany Postma hosts as well. They just provide a big event dedicated to just Svelte. And so folks like Rich Harris come and speak, and we're expecting some cool updates for Svelte. I can't say for certain. I don't know for certain, but my expectation is we will see some updates regarding Svelte 5, maybe a potential launch. Who knows? We'll see. If that does happen, I do want to let everybody know that we do have rudimentary support for Svelte 5 with Skeleton V2. There's a lot of numbers. Sorry. Skeleton V2, so prior production version of Skeleton. We'll be linking some of that information whenever if this does launch, making sure that that's in the forefront for everybody. But know that does exist. But really one of the main benefits of Skeleton V3, which we've been building these last few months, is to fully support Svelte 5. And so if you're looking for support for snippets and runes and all these really cool new APIs and things like that coming with Svelte 5, if Svelte 5 does launch next month, know that that is probably going to precede us being able to release Skeleton. And so we need to have the tools that we're building on be stabilized and production ready, and V1 or V3 or excuse me, a stable version is what I'm trying to say there, before we can kind of release our tools on top of that. And so there will be a little bit of a gap. There'll be this releases and we continue to build out our features and test and everything. And then Skeleton V3 launches sometime, a number of weeks, if not a couple months after that. We are still hoping to have Skeleton V3 by the end of the year. So just know that is something we are trying to prioritize, but just know there may be that little bit of gap where you may be very excited to go and jump straight into the new Svelte version and test that out. Please do provide feedback to them. Test the early versions of Skeleton and let us know what your feedback is. Just, obviously taper your expectations for it being production ready yet. Please and thanks. So just I know that kind of conversation will come up. Other than that, I think that's everything we have for you today. Please do kind of check everything out. Like I said, the written version of the posts will be provided in the links for this video. Check that out. It'll kind of go into a couple more details, maybe have some links for you. And if you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out in the comment section for either, or reach out on our Discord. We have a Skeleton X channel, which is perfect for reaching out for any of these V3 updates if you're curious or you just have a question or suggestion or anything like that. So hope you enjoyed the update. Again, let us know if we can help with anything, and if all goes well, maybe we'll see a early Svelte 5 launch here in the near future. It'll be very exciting. So thanks everybody. Please enjoy.